All right, good morning, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to go ahead and get started with the webinar. If I can get my machine to work, that is. Bear with me one moment. All right. My name is Adam Sewall. I'm VP of Marketing here at Density. Really appreciate everyone taking time out of their day to learn about IoT people count. And you might be thinking, what is that? And we're going to share a little bit of background. We're going to talk about what we mean when we say IoT people count. I'll show you a quick demo of Density's platform, and then we'll go through some QAs. So if you do have questions, please feel free to answer or enter them. There's a little box in the bottom of your screen that looks like says Q&A on it. Just feel free to point your questions there, and we'll take them at the end. So once again, really appreciate everyone's time. It's a busy time of year, so thank you. All right, so at a high level, why is it important to count people? Or what does that even mean in the context of a business or a school or another organization? Here at Density, if you look at pretty much any company or organization, your two greatest assets in terms of either the amount of spend money that you invest or time that you spend have to do either with your people, and that can be your employees, that can be your customers, that can be your guests, that could be your congregants. There's a bunch of different categories of that. And your space, meaning either your built environment, so your real estate, your workplace, your office, your store. Those two line items represent the vast majority of an investment of any organization. And historically, it's been nearly impossible to understand how those two categories interact. So at a high level, if you're able to understand how people are using your space in real time, you can do a number of different things. You can understand when things go wrong between those two categories. So for instance, with security and safety, you can understand how many people are coming into your building, and you can identify instances where there's a tailgating instance, which means when one person swipes a badge and multiple people walk into that doorway. It's a very common problem, and that's one thing that you can do if you're able to accurately count people. In terms of operations, you can adjust staffing. So for instance, if there's a bunch of people come into perhaps like a hotel lounge or a store, and that influx of people will cause some slowdowns or some challenges in terms of queuing or lines, you can get an alert and send staff in real time to go preempt that kind of hold up in your operations. And then thirdly, in terms of the experience, understanding how people interact with your built environment, meaning how many people are in any given space at any given time, you can begin to use that data to improve how your space is designed and allocated. So things like making sure that your employees have the right mix of amenity spaces, flex spaces, conference rooms, et cetera, or in the use case of a retail or hospitality use case, making sure that those amenity spaces are designed in a way that maximizes that occupant experience. So I know that this is really high level. We're gonna kind of land it here in a couple slides, but historically there are kind of four categories. If you want to unlock some of this value for your organization, you need to do four things. You need to accurately count how many people are using your space. We believe strongly that you need to do that while protecting the privacy of those individuals. So if you look at surveys, lots of individuals were fine with using security cameras and other technologies that identify us individually for use cases for security. In terms of improving operations and other use cases, we're just not comfortable with that. So protecting occupant privacy is very important. Making sure that the data is accessible in real time on any device. That's just how modern software works. It's what we've come to expect from using software at work as well as in our personal lives. And then finally, making sure that any technology you deploy to accomplish these types of things is secure, meaning it's not going to be prone to outside attacks or otherwise compromise either your data or your network. And if you look at a lot of different technologies out there on the market that are emerging to do these types of things. So for instance, there's brake beam sensors. They fall down, they're not particularly accurate. Cameras are not anonymous. Stereoscopic and some of these other people counters, they're old line people counters on the market, do not make it very easy to access the data. And many of these technologies, from an information or network data security standpoint, do introduce a lot of risks to your network. And so these are the categories that differentiate what we've done here at Density. So this is the density, what we reference as the depth processing unit, which we'll get into that. The highest level thing you want to know about this is it's not a camera. You can hear me say this a bunch of times during this webinar. This device was designed to accurately, anonymously count people in real time and make that data available on any device or via API. And I know that might sound like an alphabet soup, but we're going to go through exactly and show you what that means and how that data can benefit your organization. So this is the depth processing unit. What it does is, rather than using a visual spectrum, such as that a camera uses or other technology, we're using onboard infrared lasers to measure depth. So you can imagine on the left here, what you're seeing, this is not a thermal sensor. These are depth measurements. And so in any given second, this sensor is illuminating the scene below a doorway. It's accurately measuring all of the different depth measurements. And then we have a set of algorithms that use deep learning to identify the human objects and delete everything else from the scene. So the takeaway here is that this technology is able to solve where other solutions fail in terms of accuracy, anonymity, and real-time data. So the reason for this is it's a fairly hard problem to solve. There's a lot of different types of activities that occur in any given store or office building. People do a range of different activities, and these are just examples of the types of human activity within buildings that trips up other technologies. So you can see, they're pulling in objects. There's bags. There's bikes. The one there on the bottom, in the middle, people are carrying plates. So a lot of these different instances make it difficult for other sensors to accurately track this. In this last example here, sometimes they're not human, right? So they're other objects, such as, in this case, a dog coming into a doorway. You don't want to count the dog. We're not a dog counting company, but who knows? The team behind the technology here at Density is phenomenal. Our core team and our engineering team come from names such as NASA, Genentech, Microsoft, Apple, Stanford University. Our focus with the technology is to help our clients improve the efficiency, security, and occupant experience of our buildings, our customers' buildings and real estate. We're based here in San Francisco, and we have a manufacturing facility in Syracuse, New York. We make the devices here in the US. That's a picture from that facility, and we also do have a New York City location. Just a snapshot of some of the customers we're working with across a range of different verticals. Corporate office spaces, we're helping companies maximize their real estate spend, increase the employee experience of those spaces. In the hospitality space, we're enabling operations and brand teams to maximize the experience of their highest value customers, whether that's in an airport lounge, an executive lounge at a hotel, or a gym facility. We're allowing them to not only give their customers a real-time look into the busyness of those spaces, but also alert staff and make sure that those spaces are run in a way that maximizes that experience. And then in the education category, in the higher ed category, we're enabling names like Notre Dame to create a better campus experience for staff, students, and administrators through better services delivery based on the number of people that are using different spaces. So I will avoid trying to kill everyone by PowerPoint here, so I will jump into a quick demo. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them there. I've already gone ahead and logged into what we call Density Dashboard, which is the web application where you would log in to access your people count data. We do support single sign-on, so if your company or organization uses like an Okta or a Google Business Apps or any other SAML-based SSO, that's something that we can integrate, making sure that you do this in a secure way. I've already logged in here, and I'll just show you a couple elements of the dashboard. So I've already clicked on spaces here. A space within dashboard is exactly that. It's any physical space that you define with the density sensor. So the sensors go above a doorway. If you had a room that had, or a floor maybe that had one entrance into that floor, you would have one sensor, and then you would understand how many people are coming in or leaving that space, both in real time as well as over time. If that space had two entrances, you'd want two sensors, and then The sensors are designed to communicate with each other. So if you had, again, if you had a room that had 2 entrances, there were 10 people in the room, and you had 3 people walk in and 2 people walk out of the other door, you would show 9 people in that room. And so this is how these spaces are configured. So you can see here on the left, we've got a few examples here in one of our demo environments. We've got New York City space, our San Francisco location, and then in each one of these office locations, we've got a number of different rooms. I've gone ahead and clicked on Hopper, which is one of the conference rooms that we have here. And what you can see is I've selected a time frame, and I can come in here and start to understand how many people are visiting, meaning coming into this space in a given day. And I can start to see that over time. So you can see a couple weeks ago, we had a board meeting actually here in San Francisco, and you can see that week was busier than other weeks. You can start to understand when this space is being utilized. So when can you expect the highest amount of traffic coming into this space by hour? And so you can start to understand how many people are coming in any given hour. Peak occupancy is a use case that comes up a lot, especially for, again, amenity spaces or places that get very busy. This is the maximum number of people that were in this room at any one given time. And you can see that during that board meeting, we actually had 13 people. There are 12 seats in this conference room. So we know that we went over capacity by 1 on that particular day. If we wanted to either modify our operations or modify our staffing based on an event where we're going over capacity on a particular location, density makes it possible to create alerts. So if I wanted to get notified if this space were getting close to capacity, let's say that this was a larger location, maybe this is a lobby, and we want to make sure that for code compliance, we can't go over 200. I would want to set a notification, say, okay, great. Let me know when this space is there are more than 180 people in this space. Or if we were operating, we work with a bunch of nightclubs as well who use this use case, where they want to make sure that they're staying under capacity for both code compliance, but also maximizing the number of people that are in the club or in that business so that they're maximizing revenue. So I could configure this, and what would happen is as this was, just got logged out here, apologies. As it's crossing that threshold, I would get a text notification, and I would be able to go in and either send that to my staff or take action on it to make sure that we take action and run an efficient operation. All of this data is available for export, so it's very easy to export if you have another application that you do analysis or reporting in. And again, we do have APIs which allow you to connect this system to other software and mash it up and get more value out of it that way, or additional value rather. You can understand overall utilization. So in this particular use case, you can understand how often it was actually occupied. This is a huge use case in the office corporate real estate space, understanding whether you have the right amount of space for each employee as well as the right mix of spaces. Density makes it easy to understand when you have a problem or when things are going well. And then for this particular room, you can start to understand how many people are in the room at any one given time. So in this case, it's a 12-person conference room. We actually have 1 person during this time frame is the most frequent number of people in the room. So clearly, we're not utilizing this space in the way that it was intended, and we can and should adjust the layout and the usage of this space to make sure that we're maximizing both the efficiency as well as the experience of our office. Okay, I'll jump really quickly into dashboards here, which I've already preloaded here. Dashboards within Density are effectively you can create and save reports that you want to look at on a regular basis. So we've preloaded a couple here in this particular demo instance. You can start to understand, again, you've already seen these types of reports, but I've saved this to a dashboard, and what we can do is we can create what we call a digest. And I'm able to come in, and sorry, I loaded it in the tab that I was logged out in. Apologies. You can set up a dashboard digest. So if you have people on your team who are unlikely to log into the dashboard on a regular basis, facilities teams, security teams, a lot of these people are out in the field a lot. They're not going to be sitting at their computer. You can create a dashboard here. So call this like weekly occupancy dashboard. and I can create a time and say, I want this to go out at 6 a.m. on Mondays and Thursdays. And then I could go in and kind of select the different users that I want to see receive this dashboard. And then what they would get, and I could send this to anybody who wants to receive it right now. What they would get in their email is the reports. They would be able to click and log in and see any additional information that they might want to look at. So we'll stop there at the demo. There's a few other things, but I want to be cognizant of time here. So just wanted to wrap up really quickly. At a high level, again, just revisiting those things in terms of why you would want to use density from a technology standpoint. There's no personally identifiable information captured from our sensors, so they can be deployed in locations such as you can see here at the right in an office location where employees would otherwise be uncomfortable with the cameras. The accuracy of density sensor is unparalleled in the market, so we're seeing 97, 98, 99% accuracy. The device is designed with enterprise network security in mind from day one. So, for example, if you are a techie and you want to understand this stuff or be aware of it, there's no inbound connections to the device. We encrypt data in transit and at rest. And as part of the density service, that device will receive automatic software updates and upgrades. It'll always have the latest and greatest in terms of functionality. And then making that data available in real time is something that truly differentiates our solution. Understanding when you're approaching capacity, understanding when things are busy, when they're not busy, and taking action on that data is something that we're working with some of the leading brands around the world with. Just a real quick testimonial from Pepsi. They're using this to test and use in some of their conference rooms and deployments in a corporate office setting to improve that experience for employees. And we'll leave it at that. What a whirlwind, huh? I want to see if there's any questions. Don't be bashful. Great. Looks like we've got a question about commissioning and deployment overhead of the systems. That's a great question. So I believe the question specifically around installing and getting them deployed. There are a number of different options. So we work with some customers who have a facilities management team or an IT team that would prefer to manage the deployment. Typically, that works if you're starting out with 5, 10, 15 sensors. The devices are PoE plus, so standard network connectivity. If you have a PoE switch, that's one option. You can use an adapter, so a PoE injector, and connect it via Wi-Fi. Once that device is plugged in, it gets provisioned into your account, and it'll start counting. Also, as part of our deployment process, we have an accuracy audit process that each device will go through as it is calibrated and learns from the doorway that it's installed on. And so that's something that's automated and part of the software subscription service that's part of our pricing. And so while I'm on pricing, the way the pricing works, you can go to our website and see how it works. But effectively, there's a line item, there's a cost for the sensor, and then there's a software subscription that is used to give you access to the data to make sure that the system's up to date and you get the latest and greatest. It includes a 5-year hardware warranty, so you can go and look how pricing's worked on our website. Happy to answer any questions following the call as well. Okay. We're feeling overwhelmed by all the different sensors and IoT solutions. What recommendations do you have for making things simpler? That is a good question. With density, we always try to work with clients on identifying a specific pain or problem. And so that's really the place that you want to start and then work backwards from there. So for instance, we're working with LinkedIn on making sure that their cafeteria experience is efficient and cost effective for their employees. And what that means is they had a specific set of questions around how much food they might be wasting when it came to preparing food and running the cafeteria for their employees. Turned out that it was a significant amount of money. I can't disclose exactly how much, but we were able to give them an exact count of the number of people coming into that facility, create that report, which was, sent. They get the report sent out twice a week to enable their staff and their culinary team to prepare meals based on expected number of visits. They're now starting to expose that data to end employees so that they don't have to wait in line for 20, 30 minutes, which has huge savings in terms of employee productivity. So I would say start with the problem and work back from there. We'd be happy to hop on a call with any one of you and have a one-on-one conversation about what problems or challenges you might be seeing. And I'll also say that in some cases you might not know that you have a problem. So for the real estate investment use case, you might not know, you might suspect that you have too much real estate allocated to certain teams or certain buildings, but you might not know by how much. And so Density is able to come in and provide data that clearly quantifies your opportunity to either consolidate, repurpose, or otherwise unlock more value from the underutilized real estate. Same thing with the tailgating use case. So you might suspect that you have people sneaking into your office behind credentialed employees. With Density integrated into your access control, you're going to be able to get an actual count and understand where, when, and how tailgating is occurring so you can mitigate that risk. Okay, another question, is data shared via APIs? Yes, it absolutely is. So in fact, our API product was the first product we invested in. If you go to our website, in the footer on the website, and actually in the top navigation, the top menu, there's links to our documentation. If you're curious to see how that stuff works, we'd be happy to hop on a call, provide documentation. We can actually spin up a sandbox environment if you want to experiment with integrating. What we find with Density data is it becomes unlocks additional value when you combine it with other data. So in the IWMS use case or the facilities use case, combining people count data with stuff like energy consumption, or even using real-time data to start adjusting HVAC and energy draw based on as the number of people are coming in, increasing HVAC. Sorry, I haven't had my second cup of coffee this morning, so apologies. But using that data to run a more efficient operation and reduce costs is something that we're working actively on with different customers. Okay, I think that's it for questions. Really appreciate everyone's time. We'll be sending out the recording of this webinar to everyone who attended. If you do have questions, feel free to reach out to me directly, or you can contact sales@density.io. We'd be happy to answer additional questions about your project. Thanks, everyone.